It was halfway through the 2023-2024 season, and the Battalion Hockey Club was struggling. With a record just barely over 500 and no playoff success, the general manager Slychuk turned to international free agency. He didn't find much, but there was one prospect that caught his attention: Chuck Chuck. Chuck Chuck hailed from Arizona and was massive. Unfortunately, he skated like Bambi on ice. Still, Slychuk saw potential and invited him for a tryout with the club. Chuck Chuck signed his PTO and got to work, hopefully earning a roster spot and providing the club with what they were looking for: more firepower. The first few days were rough, but the higher-ups of the organization still saw potential. Therefore, they stuck with the plan and developed Chuck Chuck. Chuck Chuck was getting better, but there was still more room for improvement. Slychuk decided it was time to change up Chuck Chuck's playstyle. Recognizing his size, Coach Slychuk told him one thing that changed the trajectory of Chuck Chuck's entire career: go to the net. Chuck Chuck made the blue paint his home, greasing it up and slamming in rebounds. Not only that, but he started to recognize the power he had with his size. He began throwing the body, leaving the opposition afraid to touch the puck when he was on the ice. Chuck Chuck had developed a bite to his game. He became a force to be reckoned with both Slychuk and Tuchuk feeding Chuck Chuck backdoor tap-ins, as well as shooting pucks off him and into the net like he was a backboard. Chuck was scoring with ease. With Chuck Chuck's improved scoring and his new playstyle, both Slychuk and Tuchuk agreed to extend the young phenom. The Arizona native was re-signed for 2 more years. The contract was pricey, and a portion of the fan base was upset at the cost. Coach and general manager Slychuk assured the fan base that this was a great investment, stating that the fire in Chuck Chuck's game would bring forward a bright age for the club. The fan base decided to rally behind Chuck Chuck, and he continued to bury rebounds and terrorize the opposition. Chuck Chuck quickly became a fan favorite. Fans would bring in signs with Chuck Chuck's name on them, and his jersey also became the highest sold jersey in the team shop, surpassing the captain and franchise defenseman Slychuk. After Chuck Chuck's amazing rookie season, it was time for the playoffs, the first playoffs of his career, hoping to help bring home Battalion's first ever Elite Cup. Before playoffs began, Slychuk was high on Chuck Chuck, stating that he was built for the playoffs and that the club was going to make a deep run. With the combined firepower of Slychuk's puck movement and skating, Tuchuk's piss missile of a shot, and Chuck Chuck's shenanigans in the crease, the club would easily fly into round 2. In round 2, the club would face some adversity. Losing a few games, the boys would get frustrated and turn on each other. It was at this time Chuck would stand up and make a triumphant speech in the locker room. He would say things like, "It's not good enough, it's the fucking club finals. Dig in." This would fire the team up. Motivated by Chuck Chuck's sudden leadership, they would battle their way to Game 6 of round 2. It was in Game 6 of the second round that Chuck Chuck would have his legacy game. The stage was set. The boys needed a win to force a Game 7. Before the game, it came to light that Tuchuk had a runny nose and couldn't play, forcing Anthony Jackson into the lineup in a must-win game. Jackson was a terrorist and couldn't be trusted. Morale was down, and hopes for the cup almost vanished. It was in the face of adversity that Chuck Chuck would step up and bury 7 goals in 1 game, setting a new club record for most goals in a playoff game that still stands to this day. Chuck Chuck's 7 goals secured the win and forced a Game 7. With Tuchuk back in a full lineup, they would win Game 7 and move on to round 3. Chuck Chuck's locker room leadership and moving speeches propelled the boys to sweep round 3 with ease, sending them off to the finals. They were right there, the Elite Cup just out of reach. As the finals commenced, the boys were confident in their play. Too confident. They would lose 3 straight, sending the locker room into distress and almost starting a civil war. The boys had a few days off to reset and got back to work, realizing the job isn't finished. With the season on the line and the most important game of the year, the team rallied and got a huge win. Unfortunately, the hole they dug themselves was too deep to climb out of. They lost the next game, eliminating them and effectively ending their season. Chuck was quoted after the loss saying, "Remember this feeling." As the season ended, the most tragic event in club history would take place.